It's time for a new topic, and that topic is virtualization. Quick reminder that in the description of this video, you'll find a link to download the free guided notes and the Anki flashcards that go along with this topic. Virtualization is a technology that lets you create virtual representations of servers, storage, networks, and other physical machines. What does this mean for cloud computing? It means that virtualization lets you emulate the physical hardware components of a single physical server as multiple virtual components. Now that you have a high-level understanding of virtualization, let's talk about some of the more technical terms that are associated with how virtualization works. As we've talked about, virtualization lets us emulate physical hardware by splitting up a single server into multiple virtual components. But there's actually something that sits between the physical hardware and the virtual components. That's the hypervisor. The hypervisor is the software that is carving out those virtualized representations of the physical hardware into the smaller virtual components. It sits between the physical hardware and those smaller components. Let's get more specific about what those virtual components are. Well, you see, those virtual components are represented as virtual machines. These virtual machines are a software image of a physical computer. This is virtualization at work. The hypervisor represents the smaller virtual components that have been carved up from the physical server, and they're not presented to us as these virtual machines. These virtual machines are essentially a program that's running on some physical server somewhere, but they emulate real machines to us, the customer. Each virtual machine can thus have its own operating system and sets of applications. Now, why should we care about this? What are the benefits? To understand the benefits a little better, let's visit our friend Dan. His company needs 1,000 really powerful computers to complete some workloads. He needs some of the computers to have a specific type of very expensive processor. Now, wouldn't that be great if that was his only requirement? Well, some of those computers also need to have at least 270 gigabytes of memory. Now, keep in mind that most computers sold to consumers have about 8 or 16 gigabytes of memory. Dan needs multiple computers with at least 270 gigabytes of memory. How much do you think it would cost Dan's company to acquire all these computers the traditional way? Well, the answer is a lot of money, a ton of money. Well, virtual machines can save the day. Instead of having to buy a bunch of physical computers, Dan's company can get virtual machines with the same specifications that they need from AWS for a fraction of the cost on a pay-as-you-go basis. Even if a company's computer needs aren't as extreme as Dan's company, having virtual machines can still be extremely useful and save the company a lot of money. Now, this is important. Virtualization is not the same thing as cloud computing. Virtualization makes it possible for companies like AWS to provide cloud computing services. With virtualization, one piece of hardware can be made to act like multiple pieces of hardware. Cloud computing, on the other hand, is a much broader term. Cloud computing is just a term that refers to on-demand access to IT services and resources. In short, virtualization isn't cloud computing, but cloud computing uses virtualization.